All right, here's a thought. What if the smartest thing about you is actually the very thing that's holding you back? It sounds kind of crazy, right? But today, we're going to dig into something called the intellectual trap. This wild paradox where being super brilliant can actually lead to you being completely, totally stuck. Let's break it down.
I mean, have you ever been there? You research something to death. You've got spreadsheets, you've mapped out every single possibility, you know all the pros, all the cons, and you still can't pull the trigger. You're just frozen. Well, that feeling, that paralysis from your own knowledge, that's exactly what we're talking about today. We're going to unpack how your own brain power might be your biggest roadblock.
And this leads us right into what we call the smart person's paradox. It's super simple, but so frustrating. The more you're able to see, the less you actually do. You know, it's that classic can't see the forest for the trees problem, but flipped on its head. You see the entire complex forest so clearly that picking just one single tree to start with feels, well, impossible. Because here's what's happening inside your head. You see every single angle, every option, every tiny little thing that could possibly go wrong. And so you just hesitate. Your brain isn't just making a map, it's also a full-time disaster planner. So for every brilliant idea it comes up with, it also flags 1,000 potential failures. And that amazing foresight you have, it ends up becoming a cage. It leads to, well, doing nothing at all. So this feeling, this state of being completely gridlocked in your own head, it actually has a name. It's called analysis paralysis. And this is the engine that drives the whole intellectual trap. Now, this isn't just a case of thinking too much. No, it's deeper than that. The key thing to get here is that the act of analyzing is what paralyzes the outcome. It's wild, right? Your brain's very attempt to find the absolute best path becomes the reason you never take any path. It's a perfect, totally self-defeating loop. Let me put it another way. Basically, the more options your super smart brain can come up with, the harder it is to pick just one. Think about it. Your intelligence opens up all these doors. But when you find yourself standing in a hallway with what feels like an infinite number of doors, choosing just one can feel so overwhelming that you just stand there, perfectly still. Okay, but why? Why does this even happen? Why do we feel this deep need to analyze everything into the ground? Well, that brings us to the next layer of this whole thing, and it really comes down to perfectionism. But, and this is a big but, it's probably not for the reason you think. Because here's the secret. Perfectionism is often just the fear of looking stupid in public. And that gets right to the emotional heart of it, doesn't it? That endless spiraling analysis. It's not really about finding the perfect answer. It's a shield, it's a defense mechanism, and it's all driven by one very simple, very powerful fear. The fear of messing up and looking dumb. So to really get a handle on this intellectual trap, it actually helps to look at the exact opposite. I mean, think about it. Why is it that sometimes the people with way less information, or maybe even less skill, seem to act with so much more confidence? What's going on there? This really lays out the two extremes of the confidence spectrum. On one side, you've got the intellectual trap, right? High capability, you know so much that you see all the risks, and that just erodes your confidence and stops you from doing anything. But on the other side, you have the Dunning-Kruger effect. This is that famous cognitive bias where people with low ability just don't see the risks. They don't know enough to realize how much they don't know. And because of that, their confidence is through the roof. It's this perfect, wild, inverse relationship. Okay, so we've defined the problem. We've dug into why it happens, and we've even looked at its polar opposite. Now, let's get practical. Let's turn all this understanding into awareness. The first step is always spotting it in yourself. So how can you tell if you're caught in this trap? All right, let's run through the hallmarks of the trap. Ask yourself these questions. Do you find yourself hesitating just because there are too many options? Do you feel like you need a perfect plan before you can even think about starting? Is your main driver just a deep fear of making a mistake? And maybe most telling of all, do you know more but somehow feel less confident than other people? If you're kind of nodding your head to these, yeah, you might be in the trap. And really, this is the most important takeaway. The very first step to getting out of any trap is knowing you're in one. You can't escape something you don't even know is there, right? So the most powerful thing you can do right now is just recognize this pattern in yourself. Give it a name. That awareness, that's the flashlight. That's what shows you the way out. So I want to leave you with this final thought. We've basically just laid out the entire map of the intellectual trap. You can see the walls now, you can recognize how the whole thing works. The question isn't, why am I stuck anymore? The real question is this. Now that you can see the trap, what's just one small, imperfect, but real step you can take to start walking out?